You wake up one morning feeling a sharp pain in your chest. It's not the first time. It's been coming and going for weeks. But this time, it's different. This time, it's unbearable. You rush to the hospital, your mind racing with fear. What if it's your heart? What if it's something worse? At the hospital, you're greeted with a flurry of activity. Nurses take your vitals, doctors ask questions, and machines beep ominously. You're handed a stack of forms to fill out. Insurance information, consent forms, disclaimers. Your hands tremble as you sign your name, barely reading the fine print. Hours later, the doctor delivers the news. It's not your heart. It's stress. You're sent home with a prescription and a bill for thousands of dollars. But here's the kicker. Your insurance won't cover it. Why? Because the hospital was out of network. Because the tests they ran weren't medically necessary. Because the fine print you didn't read gave them every right to deny your claim. You're left with a choice: pay the bill and risk financial ruin, or fight the system and risk your health. This is the reality of medical insurance in the modern world. A system designed to protect you, yet one that often leaves you more vulnerable than ever. But here's the paradox. Why do we trust a system that so often betrays us? Why do we pay thousands of dollars in premiums only to be denied coverage when we need it most? Why do we accept a system that prioritizes profit over people, bureaucracy over care, and fine print over fairness? These questions cut to the core of what it means to live in a modern society. They force us to confront a truth we've been avoiding. The medical insurance system is not broken. It's working exactly as intended. But what does that mean? And why do we continue to participate in a system that so often fails us? The answer lies in a web of psychological manipulation, societal conditioning, and philosophical contradictions. A web so intricate that most of us don't even realize we're trapped in it. But before we can explore how to break free, we must first understand how we got here. The medical insurance system is not an accident. It is not a flawed but well-meaning attempt to provide health care. It is a carefully constructed machine, designed to maximize profit while minimizing care. But how did we get here? Why do we accept a system that so often fails us? The answer lies in a web of psychological manipulation, societal conditioning, and philosophical contradictions. A web so intricate that most of us don't even realize we're trapped in it. Let's start with the psychology. Humans are wired for trust. From the moment we're born, we rely on others to take care of us. This instinct doesn't disappear when we grow up. It simply shifts. We trust doctors to heal us, governments to protect us, and corporations to serve us. But this trust is not unconditional. It is based on a fragile assumption that those in power have our best interests at heart. This assumption is where the manipulation begins. Medical insurance companies exploit our trust by presenting themselves as benevolent protectors. They use language like coverage, protection, and peace of mind to create the illusion of safety. But behind this facade lies a cold, calculating machine designed to extract as much money as possible while providing as little care as necessary. This is what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort we feel when our beliefs conflict with reality. We want to believe that the system is fair, that it's there to help us. But when it fails us, we're left with two choices: confront the uncomfortable truth or rationalize it away. Most of us choose the latter. We tell ourselves that the system is flawed but fixable, that our case is an exception, that next time will be different. This is not just denial, it's survival. Facing the truth that the system is designed to exploit us is too painful, too overwhelming. But the manipulation doesn't stop there. Medical insurance companies also exploit our fear. Fear of illness, fear of death, fear of financial ruin. They use this fear to sell us policies we don't need, to convince us to pay premiums we can't afford, and to keep us trapped in a cycle of dependency. This is what Friedrich Nietzsche called the will to power, the drive to control, to dominate, to exploit. In the case of medical insurance, this drive is masked by a veneer of benevolence. But beneath the surface, it's all about power and profit. And then there's the societal conditioning. From a young age, we're taught to value security over freedom, conformity over rebellion, obedience over questioning. We're taught to trust authority, to follow the rules, to play the game. This conditioning is reinforced by every aspect of our culture, our education system, our media, our politics. It's so pervasive that we don't even notice it. We accept the medical insurance system not because we believe in it, but because we've been taught to. This is what Jean-Paul Sartre called bad faith. The act of living inauthentically, of denying our true selves in order to conform to societal expectations. When we accept a system that exploits us, we're not just betraying ourselves, we're betraying our humanity. But perhaps the most insidious aspect of the medical insurance system is its philosophical contradictions. On the surface, it's based on the idea of shared risk, the idea that we all contribute to a pool, and that pool is used to help those in need. But in practice, it's based on the opposite principle, the principle of exclusion. The more you need help, the less likely you are to get it. The sicker you are, the more you're denied. The more vulnerable you are, the more you're exploited. This is not just a flaw in the system, it's the system itself. But why do we accept this? Why do we participate in a system that so often fails us? The answer lies in a web of psychological manipulation, societal conditioning, and philosophical contradictions. A web so intricate that most of us don't even realize we're trapped in it. But before we can explore how to break free, we must first understand the consequences of staying trapped. The medical insurance system doesn't just fail us in moments of crisis. It shapes our lives in ways we rarely notice. Its influence is subtle, pervasive, and often invisible. It affects how we think, how we behave, and even how we see ourselves. Every year, millions of people are driven into debt by medical bills they thought were covered. They're forced to choose between paying for health care and paying for rent, between filling a prescription and putting food on the table. But the consequences go deeper than debt. When people are denied coverage, they're not just losing money. They're losing trust. Trust in the system. Trust in their doctors. Trust in themselves. They start to question whether they deserve care, whether they're worth saving. This is what psychologists call learned helplessness, the belief that nothing you do will make a difference. It's a state of mind that's as damaging as any physical illness, but the consequences don't stop there. The medical insurance system also shapes how we think about health. It turns healthcare into a commodity, something to be bought and sold. It encourages us to see our bodies as machines, to view illness as a failure, and to treat symptoms instead of addressing root causes. This is what philosophers call reification, the process of turning something living and complex into a thing, a product, a transaction. It's a mindset that's as dehumanizing as it is destructive. And then there's the toll on our relationships. When people are denied coverage, they're not just losing access to care. They're losing their sense of security, their sense of belonging. They start to feel like burdens, like outsiders, like failures. This is what sociologists call social exclusion, the process of being pushed to the margins of society. It's a form of isolation that's as painful as any physical illness. But perhaps the most insidious consequence of all is the loss of agency. When people are denied coverage, they're not just losing access to care. They're losing control over their own lives. They're forced to rely on a system that doesn't care about them, to beg for help from people who see them as numbers, not human beings. This is what philosophers call alienation, the feeling of being disconnected from yourself, from others, from the world. It's a state of mind that's as debilitating as any physical illness. But the consequences aren't just personal, they're societal. When people are denied coverage, they're not just losing access to care, they're losing their ability to contribute to society. They're forced to drop out of school, to quit their jobs, to give up on their dreams. This is what economists call human capital depletion, the loss of potential, of talent, of innovation. It's a cost that's borne not just by individuals, but by society as a whole. And then there's the toll on our democracy. When people are denied coverage, they're not just losing access to care. They're losing their faith in the system. They start to see the government as corrupt, the corporations as greedy, the world as unfair. This is what political scientists call political disengagement, the process of withdrawing from civic life. It's a form of apathy that's as dangerous as any physical illness. But perhaps the most tragic consequence of all is the loss of hope. When people are denied coverage, they're not just losing access to care. They're losing their belief in a better future. They start to see life as a series of battles, each one harder than the last. This is what psychologists call learned hopelessness, the belief that nothing will ever get better. It's a state of mind that's as deadly as any physical illness. But here's the twist. These consequences are not accidents. They are features, not bugs. The medical insurance system is designed to keep us trapped, to keep us dependent, to keep us powerless. It's a system that thrives on our fear, our trust, our hope. But before we can explore how to break free, we must first understand the forces that keep us trapped. Breaking free from the medical insurance system is not just about changing policies or switching providers. It's about challenging the very foundations of the system, the beliefs, the assumptions, the power structures that keep us trapped. This is not a simple task. It requires courage, creativity, and a willingness to question everything we've been taught. But it's not impossible. Let's start with the first step: awareness. The medical insurance system thrives on ignorance. It relies on us not asking questions, not reading the fine print, not understanding how it works. But awareness is power. When we educate ourselves about the system, when we learn how it operates, who benefits, and who suffers, we take the first step toward breaking free. This is what philosophers call consciousness raising, the process of becoming aware of the forces that shape our lives. It's a form of empowerment that's as powerful as any physical act of rebellion. But awareness is not enough. The second step is solidarity. The medical insurance system thrives on division. It pits us against each other, rich against poor, healthy against sick, insured against uninsured. But solidarity is power. When we come together, when we share our stories, our struggles, our solutions, we create a force that's stronger than any system. This is what sociologists call collective action, the process of working together to achieve a common goal. It's a form of resistance that's as powerful as any physical act of rebellion. But solidarity is not enough. The third step is innovation. The medical insurance system thrives on stagnation. It relies on us accepting the status quo, on believing that there's no alternative. But innovation is power. When we imagine new ways of providing health care, when we create systems that prioritize people over profit, care over control, we take the first step toward breaking free. This is what economists call disruptive innovation, the process of creating new solutions that challenge the status quo. It's a form of rebellion that's as powerful as any physical act of resistance. But innovation is not enough. The fourth step is advocacy. The medical insurance system thrives on silence. It relies on us not speaking out, not demanding change, not holding it accountable. But advocacy is power. When we raise our voices, when we demand transparency, fairness, and justice, we take the first step toward breaking free. This is what activists call grassroots organizing, the process of building power from the ground up. It's a form of resistance that's as powerful as any physical act of rebellion. But advocacy is not enough. The fifth step is self-care. The medical insurance system thrives on exhaustion. It relies on us being too tired, too stressed, too overwhelmed to fight back. But self-care is power. When we take care of ourselves, when we prioritize our health, our well-being, our happiness, we take the first step toward breaking free. This is what psychologists call resilience building, the process of developing the strength to withstand adversity. It's a form of resistance that's as powerful as any physical act of rebellion. But self-care is not enough. The sixth step is vision. The medical insurance system thrives on despair. It relies on us believing that change is impossible, that the system is too big, too powerful, too entrenched. But vision is power. When we imagine a better future, when we dream of a world where healthcare is a right, not a privilege, we take the first step toward breaking free. This is what philosophers call utopian thinking, the process of imagining a better world. It's a form of resistance that's as powerful as any physical act of rebellion. But vision is not enough. The seventh step is action. The medical insurance system thrives on inaction. It relies on us being too afraid, too complacent, too resigned to fight back. But action is power. When we take action, when we vote, when we protest, when we organize, we take the first step toward breaking free. This is what activists call praxis, the process of turning theory into action. It's a form of resistance that's as powerful as any physical act of rebellion. But action is not enough. The eighth step is persistence. The medical insurance system thrives on fatigue. It relies on us giving up, on believing that the fight is too hard, the odds too long, the stakes too high. But persistence is power. When we keep fighting, when we refuse to give up, no matter how hard it gets, we take the first step toward breaking free. This is what philosophers call the will to power, the drive to overcome, to persevere, to triumph. It's a form of resistance that's as powerful as any physical act of rebellion. But persistence is not enough. The ninth step is transformation. The medical insurance system thrives on stasis. It relies on us accepting the world as it is, on believing that change is impossible. But transformation is power. When we transform ourselves, when we become the change we want to see in the world, we take the first step toward breaking free. This is what spiritual teachers call self-realization, the process of becoming who we truly are. It's a form of resistance that's as powerful as any physical act of rebellion. But transformation is not enough. The 10th step is liberation. The medical insurance system thrives on captivity. It relies on us being trapped, on believing that freedom is impossible. But liberation is power. When we break free, when we reclaim our power, our agency, our humanity, we take the first step toward creating a better world. This is what philosophers call emancipation, the process of freeing ourselves from oppression. It's a form of resistance that's as powerful as any physical act of rebellion. But liberation is not the end. It's the beginning. Here it is, the final, most powerful realization. The one that redefines everything. The one that makes all the struggles, the questions, and the rebellions suddenly make sense. The medical insurance system is not just a system, it's a mirror. It reflects our deepest fears, our greatest hopes, and our most profound contradictions. It shows us who we are, who we could be, and who we're afraid to become. But here's the twist. The mirror is not the problem. The problem is what we see in it. When we look at the medical insurance system, we see a world that's broken, unfair, and cruel. But what we're really seeing is ourselves, our fears, our insecurities, our limitations. This is the ultimate truth. The system is not the enemy. The enemy is the part of us that believes we need it. But if this is true, why does it feel so hard to believe? Why do we feel so trapped, so lost, so powerless? The answer lies in the nature of the mind. The mind is a tool, a survival mechanism. It's designed to solve problems, to plan, to analyze. But it's also designed to create problems, to worry, to doubt. The mind is like a radio, constantly playing in the background. Sometimes it plays pleasant tunes. Other times it's filled with static. But here's the thing. You are not the radio. You are the listener. This is the essence of mindfulness, the practice of observing the mind without getting caught up in its stories. It's about realizing that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that observes them. But mindfulness is not just a practice. It's a realization. It's the understanding that you are already free, that you have always been free. The chains that bind you are not real. They are just thoughts, and thoughts have no power over you unless you give it to them. This is what the ancient philosophers and mystics have been trying to tell us for centuries. The Buddha called it nirvana, the liberation from suffering. The Stoics called it ataraxia, the state of inner peace. The Taoists called it Wu Wei, the art of effortless action. But you don't need to be a philosopher or a mystic to understand this. You just need to look within. Close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath. Notice the thoughts in your mind. Notice the emotions in your body. Now notice the awareness that's observing all of this. That awareness is you. It's always been you. It's the part of you that's always free, always present, always whole. But here's the paradox. You can't find this awareness by searching for it. It's not something you can achieve or attain. It's not something you can think your way into. It's already here, already now. This is the ultimate irony. The harder you search for freedom, the more you miss it. Freedom is not something you find. It's something you realize. So how do you realize it? The first step is to stop searching. Stop trying to fix yourself, to improve yourself, to become someone else. You are already whole, already complete. The second step is to be present. Presence is the doorway to freedom. It's the space where the mind stops, where the stories fall away, where you realize who you truly are. But presence is not something you can force. It's not something you can achieve through effort. It's something you allow, something you surrender to. This is the essence of Wu Wei, the art of effortless action. It's about letting go of control, of striving, of trying. It's about trusting the flow of life, about being here now. The third step is to embrace imperfection. The mind loves perfection. It loves ideals, goals, and standards. But perfection is an illusion. It's a story the mind tells to keep you trapped. True freedom lies in embracing imperfection, in accepting life as it is, in being okay with not being okay. It's about realizing that you don't need to be perfect to be free. But perhaps the most important step is to let go of the search for meaning. The mind loves meaning. It loves stories, explanations, and reasons. But meaning is just another story, another illusion. True freedom lies beyond meaning. It's about realizing that life doesn't need to mean anything to be beautiful. It's about finding joy in the simple act of being alive, in the miracle of existence. This is the ultimate truth. You are already free. The chains that bind you are not real. The stories that trap you are just stories. The fears that haunt you are just fears. You are the awareness behind all of it. You are the space in which everything arises and falls away. You are the stillness beneath the chaos, the silence beneath the noise, the peace beneath the pain. This is not something you need to believe. It's something you need to realize. And the moment you realize it, everything changes. The struggles, the questions, the rebellions, they all make sense. They were never about finding freedom. They were about realizing that you've always been free. So what now? Now, you live. You live authentically, courageously, and wholeheartedly. You live as if you've already found what you've been searching for. Because you have. You live with presence, with gratitude, with joy. You live as the awareness that you are, as the freedom that you've always been. And in doing so, you inspire others to do the same. You become a beacon of freedom, a reminder that true freedom lies within. This is the ultimate truth. This is the final, most powerful realization. You are already free.